Andrew Goes Fishing in Manitoba, Chapter 4, A Trip to the Whiteshell. It wasn't long before Andrew and Grandpa did go on another unforgettable fishing trip. His grandparents were visiting, and Grandpa was telling stories about when Andrew's uncles were young, and he took them on fishing trips to some of the lakes in Whiteshell Provincial Park. He said that one of his favorite places was Nutimic Lake. "We'll go there for fishing and camping," Grandpa promised Andrew. "In fact, let's plan to go next weekend. We'll take my boat and motor so we can go out on the lake to a few of my favorite fishing spots. I'll even show you Sturgeon Falls, but we won't fish there because the current is too fast. As soon as we get there, we'll take the boat out on the lake to fish. When we're done fishing for the day, we'll pitch the tent and build a fire to fry some of the fish we catch." He winked at Grandma and said, "We'll leave Grandma home and it'll be just the two of us." Grandpa told Andrew that he would need to go to bed early on the Friday night so he could be ready to leave by 7 o'clock the next morning. He also told Andrew to make sure that he brought along warm clothes in case it got cold when they were out in the boat on the water or sitting around the campfire at night. Grandpa packed the camping equipment and hitched the boat up to his truck on Friday night. When he arrived at Andrew's house the next morning, his grandson was ready and waiting. He was holding his rod and reel and the tackle box full of fishing lures that Grandpa had given him for his birthday. Grandpa put the fishing equipment into the boat while Andrew said goodbye to his parents. They climbed into the truck, buckled up their seatbelts, and headed for the highway leading out of the city. Andrew was full of questions. How long will it take us to get there? Will we see any animals along the way? Can I help you put up the tent? Are we going fishing as soon as we get there? Are there lots of fish in the lake? Grandpa Brown answered all the questions patiently. Over the years, he had done a lot of fishing in Manitoba's waters. He had also read a lot and could answer almost any question about the different species of fish found in Manitoba and the fishing rules and regulations set out by the government. Grandpa liked to pass his knowledge on to others, especially youngsters like his grandson. He was pleased when he heard Andrew's next question. "What kind of fish can we catch?" asked Andrew. "Oh, there are walleye, northern pike, yellow perch, and even smallmouth bass. There are lake sturgeon too, but they are really, really big and very hard to catch. We'll spend our time fishing for more plentiful fish," Grandpa answered. "Many years ago, long before I was born, there were lots of big sturgeon in the Red and Assiniboine rivers. Now there are so few sturgeon that they are considered a rare species. If you catch these fish, you must return them to the water. A few years ago, a small number of young sturgeon were stocked in the Assiniboine River. Some of these sturgeon have grown to be almost a meter long. Someday there may be enough of the species to have a fishing season on them again. Sturgeon are an ancient fish and have been living in Manitoba's lakes and rivers for a really long time. They can live to be over 100 years old. In fact, the largest fish ever caught in Manitoba was a lake sturgeon. This species is most unusual with its pointed nose and tube-like mouth for sucking in its food. It has 4 barbels between its mouth and nose that help it find its food by taste. It has a tail similar to a shark, with the top part bigger than the bottom. Another distinguishing feature is the row of hard plates down its back and the 2 rows of plates on each side. It was a 2-hour drive and the scenery was beautiful. For many kilometers they drove past farmers' fields. Most of the trees by the side of the road were trembling aspen. Andrew recognized these trees because they were just like the tree in his yard that had leaves that fluttered in even the slightest breeze. After a while they came to the Agassiz Forest Reserve, which was mostly jack pine and spruce trees interspersed with aspen and birch. When they reached the end of the reserve, they were in farmland again. They passed Seaton's Corner and continued on. About 20 minutes later they drove through the town of Seven Sisters. Soon the farmland was left behind. It wasn't long before they came to a sign that said Whiteshell Provincial Park. There was a small building nearby. Grandpa slowed down. A man stepped out, saw their seasonal park pass, and waved them on. Now the scenery started to change again. The road began to wind in some places. There were big rocks and cliffs. Grandpa told Andrew that the rocks were part of the Canadian Shield. A long time ago, this area had been covered by a large glacier that created many of the lakes in the Whiteshell. Grandpa pointed out some places where workers had to blast through rock to build the highway. The thick forest was made up of spruce, aspen, and jack pine. There was only a different kind of tree, also a different kind of tree called a tamarack. It was unusual because although it looked like a spruce, it shed its needles in the fall. From time to time they could see lakes with cottages on the left side of the road. Watching out the window as the trees and rocks flew by, Andrew started to get sleepy. Grandpa knew that the boy probably hadn't slept much the night before because of his excitement. When Andrew's eyes finally closed, Grandpa let him rest. For the next 20 minutes, Grandpa enjoyed the scenery by himself. He followed a curve in the road and came across a mother deer and her 2 fawns standing by the trees. He pulled off the highway to a safe spot and woke Andrew up so he could have a look.